Okay. That didn't go as planned, but yeah, that was retarded. Because I couldn't see it on my end. Anyway, hell, we're already here, right? Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your commander in chief, Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. There are a lot of different discussions to be had tonight, specifically offensive coordinator. Derek Carr has been officially released by the Vegas Raiders. He is now a free agent. Are you interested? I think I know the answer for most of you, but someone asked me, was I interested? You still not interested? Because now you don't have to give up anything. We'll tackle that a little bit later on in the show. Daron Payne's contractual situation is underway. Dialogue between his camp and the Commanders has gotten underway. And so we'll see where that leads. I think it leads to the franchise tag being placed on Daron Payne before that deadline. And it leads to a deal getting done somewhere in the 23rd hour in July. But we'll see. You know, I think a lot of posturing is going to take place before this thing actually gets done. Hopefully it does. This is a little bit different. As I've mentioned to you before, this is a little bit different than Terry and Jonathan getting deals. You know, they didn't wait till those guys were free agents to do that. They got those guys done a year early. They waited until Daron was a free agent to try and get this done. Now he has the leverage because he can decide whether he wants to remain here or not, similar to Brandon Sheriff and, of course, Kirk Cousins. So we've been down this road before. It hasn't ended well for us. I think this is a little bit different. Kirk didn't want to be here. Brandon Sheriff didn't want to be here. I think Daron Payne wants to be here. That's the difference. You know, one of his better, friends is on the team, got a bunch of Alabama guys here. This is the team that drafted him. I think he wants to remain in Washington. I don't think that he's looking to go elsewhere. But, money talks and everything else walks. So we'll see how everything plays itself out. But good to hear that those negotiations are getting underway and that dialogue is happening. I shouldn't even say negotiations. Dialogue, okay? Because negotiations is when you're specifically talking numbers. They're probably not doing that quite yet. But they're probably just, engaging one another, initiating talks. And once they start throwing numbers around, that's when we'll start to get to the nitty gritty of everything and the meat and potatoes of this deal actually getting struck. And I've told you this long before, and you'll hear it probably from me many more times, but deadlines spur action. And until you have a hard deadline set where you have to get something done, nothing will get done. To me, because there's free agency coming up and you've got all these players that are in-house that you'd like to take care of, all these guys that are out there that you would like to potentially bring in. You've got the draft. There's so many different distractions. You can put Daron on the back burner if you so choose. If you give them a number that you think is fair and they're like, nah, not exactly. We were thinking a little bit more along the lines of this, and they're a little bit further apart than they want to be. Then you hit the pause button, boop, and you say, we'll come back to it. But just know, if you do that, you better be prepared to, make something happen, because unlike, and I just said this, and this will be the last time I say it tonight, unlike Terry, unlike Jonathan Allen, those guys had a whole nother year of football before they had to make something happen. You don't get anything done this year, you're looking at potentially having to franchise tag Daron Payne for a second consecutive year, and that's when things get ugly. So we're 0 for 2 in that department of, two-time tags. We're 0 for 2 in that department. So let's not get to that point. Let's get to July, get it knocked out. It'd be great if we could get it knocked out in March. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Anyway, I digress. Let's start the show off talking about the offensive coordinator position, because I think outside of Dan selling the team, that's the thing that has most of our attention right now. is what are they going to do? We're the last of the Mohicans. We're the last team to make a decision. I honestly, up until this week, they hadn't handled this situation all that poorly. They were being thorough and extensive. And one of the guys that they really wanted to talk to, he was in the midst of chasing after a Super Bowl. So I get it. There was nothing that they could do. Just like the Cardinals and the Colts were waiting on Eagles coordinators. And once that wrapped up, they were able to get to those guys quicker because they lost. So there was no ticker tape parade. There was no celebration. Immediately they were available. You lock those guys up and you move on. Whereas, but it's a little bit different for a head coaching job. Bieniemy would have made time for an interview for a head coaching position, whereas it's a lateral move from offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator. So, I'll take my sweet time getting over there. It's not like I'm getting a head coaching job or anything like that. But that said, I'm ready for some finality to this situation. Whatever they decide to do, Eric Bieniemy, Anthony Lynn, Greg Roman, Pat Shurmur, whatever the hell the answer to that question is, who's the next offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders? Just figure the shit out and let's move on so we can know what we've gotten ourselves into. We can start to kind of dig into what we should be expecting this upcoming season and then just move on. I still think it's Bieniemy. He doesn't have, and so I tweeted out once we heard from the Ravens, and I pseudo predicted this. I did a little bit of a skit with Eric Bieniemy, in Kansas City, right? And when he had the phone call from his agent, the agent said that Baltimore had already given the job to Todd Monken. So I pseudo predicted that. I mean, when a team interviews a guy multiple times, it's because they're really interested. So they had already interviewed Todd Monken twice, felt like he was going to be the guy. He had ultimately was the guy that they selected. And now Bieniemy's really out of options. There's really nowhere else for him to go. There aren't any other offensive coordinator positions still available, just Washington. Okay, everybody else has filled their void. And Andy Reid has essentially kicked him out like, bro, you got to go. It's almost like a parent with a kid that they've let stay with them until they were 26. And he was like, look, man, this is it. After, your 26th birthday, you got to find something, man. You got to spread your wings and you got to fly away. We let you stay here a lot longer than I had anticipated, but you got to go now. And, you got enough money, you got a nest egg, you got to go and find your own place. We'll help you with that, but you got to get out of our house. They're pushing Eric Bieniemy out. And I think he's ready, though. I think he's ready to go, and they're ready for him to go. And so there's no going back to Kansas City. We've already discussed this. He's not going back to Kansas City. Someone said, on the post that I made on Twitter, oh, Eric Bieniemy's going back to Kansas City. No, the hell he's not. This is it. Okay, this is the end of the line for him in Kansas City. So it's almost feeling like a foregone conclusion. The only thing that could prohibit him from being in Washington is if he bombs the interview. Like he's exactly the opposite of what they're looking for, which I don't think is going to be the case because Eric Bieniemy comes from the same era of football that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio come from. He speaks their language, even though he was with Andy Reid and all of the innovation that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with Eric Bieniemy being a part of that staff. He still thinks, I feel like, how Ron and company feeling. I think there's been a little bit of the Eric Bieniemy flavor and influence on the offense. I don't know if you saw some plays, and maybe some of it is Andy Reid too. Andy Reid's been around the block, quite a bit, a few times. And, he was, I think, under, if I'm not mistaken, Bill Walsh, if not Walsh, George Seifert, one of those San Francisco 49ers coaches, and he's seen a lot, right? But we saw some plays that, take you back to the, early to mid 90s. They had a split back, handoff to the outside, well, it wasn't to the outside. It was a counter, split back counter that went to the outside. It ultimately bounced to the outside to Pacheco on a 3rd and 1. That was gorgeous. Maybe Eric Bieniemy had a little bit to do with that. That seemed to have more of an Andy Reid flavor to it, if I had to guess, because that's more of a West Coast offense type of formation, that split backs formation. But nonetheless, I think Bieniemy's running out of options. Personally, I don't know where else he can go. So I think if they want him, he's coming to Washington at this point. So the question then becomes, is he a friend or Bieniemy? I talked about the last episode, Shady McCoy talking about, Eric Bieniemy being one of those aggressive screamer type coaches. So I saw a lot of your comments in the comment section referring to Logan Paulson, who spent time with Eric Bieniemy at UCLA when Paulson was a tight end there and Bieniemy was the running backs coach there. And he's kind of echoed those same sentiments. Like, hey, this guy's a screamer. Like, he gets through to players that are able to embrace that kind of coaching, but not everybody. This is the thing about good coaches. You learn your players and you figure out which guys can and which guys can't. And he seems to be a one-size-fits-all type of coach. I could be wrong about that. I don't know Eric Bieniemy, okay? I don't know his coaching style, but some guys need you to put their arm around them and talk to them off to the side. Other guys you can publicly lambast in front of everyone and they get the message and they don't have any hurt feelings. Some guys, you got to be able to talk to them sensibly and they don't respond well to being yelled at. Like, you got to know who's who. And some coaches, frankly, don't give a damn. And he strikes me, and I don't know this. I can't confirm nor deny this, but he strikes me as a I don't give a damn type of coach. This is who I am. This is my coaching style. Deal with it. You adjust. And so that doesn't always go over well with players, but if you want to win, and if this guy, he comes in with a winning pedigree, and if you produce results early, this is when it becomes a problem, right? If you come in here and shit isn't working and you're trying to force them to do things that don't necessarily fit what we are, and again, we're struggling for an identity over here. It's not like we've established an identity here in Washington, but we'd like to think that our receivers are the strength of our offense. And we'd like to build an offensive attack around the skill set of the receivers. And we're hoping the tight ends follow suit because I think there's some talent there. And yes, we need to run the football because we're still not sure about the quarterback position. But again, the receivers are the strong suit of this football team. So you'd like the offense to be able to get them the football in their hands in space and allow them to operate. Anyway, if he comes here and there's a different approach and we're struggling and we're still the same 17 a point, a game type of offense, but he's yelling at people, you know what that would be like? It would be like when Matt Patricia went to Detroit and he's screaming and yelling at everybody, telling them this is the way we're going to do it. He came in with that Patriot way approach, and the Lions were lovable losers, right? So these guys were ready to do whatever it took to win. And if you come in here yelling and screaming and saying we're going to do it this way and we're going to practice hard and we're going to beat the hell out of each other because it worked in New England and you think it's going to work here, yeah, we'll sign on for that initially. If this shit doesn't work, however, I'm going to start tuning you out. I'm going to start questioning, why are we beating the hell out of each other Monday through Thursday again? Why are we beating each other up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of practice? Now we've got nothing left for the game. You told us we were going to win doing it this way, and we're not. Why are we doing this again? That's something that could happen to Eric Bieniemy if he comes here and he's yelling and screaming and you're not getting results. You get results, and guys will fall in line. It's a results-based business, right? So we'll see. But I said all of that to say this. The one thing that you continuously hear from guys on that team, and I think it's probably his best quality. I read you the quote from Andy Reid, right? I read you the quote from Andy Reid about what the best skill set of Eric Bieniemy in his estimation was, right? His best skill set was holding guys accountable, essentially, getting the most out of players, right? So if that is in fact the case, maybe we need a little bit of that. Patrick Mahomes, and I told you about the spat that he had with Mahomes, and they got over that a long time ago. People made a big deal out of it, more so than they needed to. How often is it that we see quarterbacks and coordinators, going at it, disagreeing about something? We saw Mac Jones blow up on his offensive coordinator on a Monday night, only to come back and hug him 2 possessions later after he threw a touchdown pass. Brady used to get after it with Bill O'Brien all the time. They had to be separated. This is a part of when you get alpha males and guys that are hyper competitive going at it, and something doesn't work and there's a disagreement. These things can happen. We see it happen all the time. It's not a big deal, So Patrick Mahomes, I want to play a little soundbite for you of Patrick Mahomes. These are 2 different instances. The first that you're going to hear is Patrick Mahomes directly after the Super Bowl in the locker room. He was asked about EB and what he meant to Patrick Mahomes. You're going to hear that. And then immediately thereafter, you're going to hear Patrick Mahomes at the Super Bowl press conference, Radio Row during the week of the Super Bowl, leading up to the Super Bowl, being asked about EB and should he be a head coach in this league. I want you to take a listen to all of that. And again, it's just giving you more context. I gave you some on the other side that was a little bit negative. Here's some positive on the other side. Take a listen.
Great. Hey, Pat, tell us what EB means to you.
EB means the world to me, man. The way he holds me accountable, the way he makes me be great every single day, man. This man's one of a kind, man. He's one of the greatest. Make sure that you have Eric Bieniemy in your life, because he'll make sure you're ready to go. What? It's so past deserves, man. He's done everything the right way. He's been a part of this offense and this team for so long. Holds everybody accountable, is creative, and making up plays for us. And I don't know why he hasn't been hired, but it's been great for us because we've had one of the best coaches in the league with us for way long past due, and he's been winning a lot of games with us.
So you can hear Patrick Mahomes talk about his respect for Eric Bieniemy. What's the phrase you keep hearing over and over and over again? Accountability. He holds me accountable. That's usually the mark of a hard ass, a guy that holds you accountable. He's not giving out a bunch of hugs. He's not giving out a bunch of compliments. Not to say that he doesn't, but those are the guys that when you mess up, they're all over you. You do some good things and they'll tell you did a good job, but they're not going to shower you with praise. I'd liken that to probably Bill Belichick. You don't probably get a whole hell of a lot of compliments out of him until you win the Super Bowl. He's going to keep his foot down on the gas, keep pushing you, keep grinding you until, you produce diamonds, right? Mahomes has done that. And that's why I think there's a great appreciation for Eric Bieniemy, because he has pushed him. It has helped him become the quarterback that he is in the league. And when you've had the success that he's had, you love a guy like Eric Bieniemy. On the opposite end of the spectrum, when you go there for 1 year at the back end of your career, you don't really play and the guy's yelling at you, you're not happy about it. So I think when it's all said and done, I haven't been deterred. I think there is something there with Eric Bieniemy that has been amiss, which is why he hasn't gotten a job. A lot of people like to turn it into a race issue. You look at Byron Leftwich when he won the Super Bowl and he didn't get a job as the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple years ago. And he had an opportunity. Jacksonville wanted to hire him. They wanted to bring him home. He did not want to work with the general manager, who is still currently there, in Trent Baalke. He had an opportunity. He didn't want it. He figured, I got Tom Brady as my quarterback. I'll get more opportunities. I don't think he anticipated 2 years later after winning the Super Bowl he'd be fired. But here we are. He had an opportunity, and he turned it down, thinking that I'll have more opportunities. And maybe he will down the road. Who's to say? But Bieniemy has interviewed so many times and for whatever reason hasn't gotten an opportunity. I watched the Eagles defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, get cooked and outcoached every way possible in Sunday's game. And yet this has been a theme this season. Like, this wasn't the first time Jonathan Gannon has been outcoached and his defense has been cooked. So many excuses. Oh, the field conditions were terrible. Yeah, they were. They weren't great. Guys were slipping all over the place. Both teams had to deal with it. But that's no excuse. The field conditions in Dallas aren't terrible. You gave up 40 points. I don't really want to hear it. The field conditions in Detroit aren't terrible. You gave up 30-some-odd points. I really don't want to hear about the field conditions. You got out-coached. You got out-coached. You got out-schemed. And your players got devoured because you left them out to dry. And this man gets a head coaching job? I don't know. I just know I'm ready to give Eric Bieniemy an opportunity. I want to see what this is about. And maybe he sucks. Again, it's a one-year trial basis. If he sucks after 1 year, guess what? We're getting out of the Ron Rivera business anyway, and he's going to be hitting the bricks with him. If he's really good, he might be the new head coach here, or he'll get a head coaching job somewhere else. Either way, I'm willing to find out. We got nothing to lose. That's the way I approach this. We got nothing to lose. Nada. Okay? Whether we get a new owner in here or not, we got nothing to lose. Because Ron Rivera, more likely than not, won't be here next year. Now, I will say this. If we do not get a new owner, then Ron Rivera may be back again. That is something to take into consideration. If there is no ownership change this offseason, Ron Rivera could be here next year no matter what happens. Just wrap your brain around that as well. But I'm not speaking that into existence. I'm assuming that we will get ownership change this offseason and that Ron is on the clock. The minute that takes place, there is an ownership change. We take that hourglass with the sand in it, we turn that puppy upside down, and Ron's on the clock. And if Ron has a great season, guess what? We'll take that hourglass and we'll turn it back upside down again, and we'll reset the clock. But if Ron struggles, the minute that sand runs out, he's gone. So we'll see what happens. Eric Bieniemy is still my number one choice. And I think that's Washington's number one choice. And we got word today that they're going to interview him on Thursday. I won't be here, obviously, in the office on Thursday. This was my fear, that they would string this thing out longer than it needed to be, and that I wouldn't be here when they make a formal announcement on a decision. I think that decision's coming Thursday or Friday. I won't be here Thursday or Friday. I won't be back in the office until Tuesday. But you bet your ass, when I get back, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fire this thing up. We're going to go live, and we're going to talk about whomever they hired. I'd like to think it's going to be Eric Bieniemy. I'll be detached from all civilization. So I'll have no idea what has happened. No electronics, none of that stuff will be at my disposal. So I won't know what the hell's going on till I get back. So it'll be all news to me, unless it happens on Thursday when I'm still on the mainland. But in any event, we're going to have something to discuss when I come back, and it'll either be Eric Bieniemy as the new offensive coordinator here, or it'll be somebody else. My money's on Eric Bieniemy. We'll see what they decide to do. I'm intrigued by him. I'm intrigued by what his role was in Kansas City. A lot of credit has been given to everyone else but Eric Bieniemy. He's had a part that he's played in this, but in order for him to get the opportunity that he so desires, he's going to have to prove once and for all that it wasn't just Andy Reid and his creativity. And we hear all the time that Andy Reid delegates, and then he allows everyone to have a voice, and everyone's got input. And it's not just Andy Reid coming up with these plays. all this creative stuff that we see, some of it is from the players. Some of it is from the coaching staff. Some of it is from Andy Reid himself. There's a blend of all of those guys that help shape and mold what we've seen from Kansas City over the last 5 or 6 years with the creativity and all the things that they do. Bieniemy is a part of that. How big of a part is he? I don't know. None of us really know, okay? Only the people in that locker room actually know how big of a part Eric Bieniemy has played in that offense being dynamic. But I am willing to find out. I am willing to find out. Another discussion. This is going to be brief because I already know how you guys feel. Derek Carr. He was released by the Vegas Raiders on Valentine's Day, yesterday. The Raiders wanted him to waive his no trade clause, which would have given them more time. He's like, I'm not helping y'all out at all. Y'all did me dirty. So I'm not helping y'all. Y'all not getting anything off of me on the way out. Y'all not getting extra picks, a couple extra players, none of that shit. I'm not helping you benefit because y'all did me dirty. I after everything I did for y'all, coming into this organization as a second-round pick, y'all going to treat me like that? And that's a mark of Josh McDaniels. Wherever he goes, carnage ensues. I guarantee you we're not having this conversation about Derek Carr if John Gruden is still in Vegas as the head coach of the Raiders. We're not having this conversation. Derek Carr is still in Vegas, and they're still probably playing some good football, you know. But McDaniels comes in there, and everywhere he goes, carnage and mayhem ensues. He did the same thing in Denver, got rid of Jay Cutler, got rid of Brandon Marshall, and left them high and dry. By the time he left there, they were a mess. They were an absolute mess after he left. The same thing, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, the same thing is probably going to happen in Vegas. Get rid of Derek Carr. Eventually, Devontae Adams is going to want out because he's not going to stick around for this shit. If he goes from playing with Aaron Rodgers to his best friend in Derek Carr, where he put up ridiculous numbers. You know, look, they didn't play well this season as a team, and there were injuries. And Devontae Adams had a monster year again, okay? He goes from playing with Aaron Rodgers to his best buddy to now he could be playing with Jarrett Stidham or some rookie, random rookie at that. They don't get this thing right, he's going to want out eventually. And then it'll be the same exact thing it was in Denver. Get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the star receiver, and now you're left with nothing. They still got to figure out if they're going to bring back Josh Jacobs or not. Darren Waller wants a new contract. They got some shit to figure out in Vegas. They better get this quarterback thing right. That's for damn sure. But that's not our problem. That's their problem. Derek Carr's been released. So now you don't have to trade anything for him. Okay? Don't have to give up any draft capital. Don't have to eat $40 million this year, 43 next year, none of that shit. He's a free man. Okay? You can go out here, sign him to whatever contract you want to sign him to without any penalty of having to give up picks. Are you interested? My guy Derek B asked me, you still not, you sure you're not interested in Derek Carr? That was his exact quote to me. You sure you're not interested in Derek Carr? No. I'm not interested in Derek Carr. I'm sure. I'm 110% positive. I personally. Now, I don't know what you guys want to do because Derek Carr is a veteran quarterback that fits the mold of what we've been looking for the last 2 years. He's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's better than Carson Wentz. He'd immediately come in, upgrade the position, give you a viable option at the most important position that will give you a chance to win and win immediately. Okay. Same shit we've been saying the last 2 years. You know, I didn't feel that way with Fitzpatrick. You guys knew that. But last year, I thought Wentz could give us a shot. I said, if Wentz gives us what he gave Indy, which was 27/7, 3,000 yards passing, we're going to the playoffs, folks. We didn't get anything remotely close to that. So Carr is a guy. I mean, look, I don't know if he deserved it or not, but he's at the Pro Bowl. I know that doesn't mean anything. I don't even know why I brought that up. Okay. I mean, Lamar Jackson's backup was at the Pro Bowl this year. Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't even know why I even said that out of my mouth. That was crazy. I mean, Pro Bowls are a joke now. But Derek Carr, to me, is the equivalent of Kirk Cousins. That's the way I view him. And I was willing to put up with Kirk because he was homegrown product. That was our stuff. We raised that. We reared him. He was ours. We went through the tough times with Kirk of him getting benched, him getting an opportunity, stinking it up, getting benched, and then getting an opportunity again, and then, finally breaking through. And the you like that game was really when he started to turn things around. But remember, before that game, that cold red game against Tampa, we were down 24-0 in that game, if you don't recall. We had a bye week the following week after that game. Heads were going to roll. There was a chance. This was a small chance that everybody was fired, but there was a chance that if we lost that game and we were down 24-0 and we had continued to get blown out, Jay Gruden was going to get fired. Kirk Cousins was going to be benched. And that whole thing was going to be nuclear. That whole thing was going to blow the hell up. And we were going to start anew. And then you get you like that game where he goes out and erases a 24-point deficit. We come back, we win that game, and the rest is history. We make the playoffs, win the division, host a playoff game against the Packers, and you go from there, right? That was us. That was our Kirk Cousins story. We dealt with all of the failures, all the successes. I was willing to stick that out because that was our guy. Derek Carr isn't our guy. Okay. We haven't been on the Derek Carr roller coaster. And I'm not looking to get on. Let somebody else deal with it. And look, he may go somewhere, i.e. the Saints, i.e. the Jets. He may go somewhere. And he may take a team to the playoffs, and they may be a legitimate threat. Derek Carr's no slouch. But that's not what I'm looking for at this point. We got a young guy. I want to roll with the young guy, see what he's about. And if it doesn't work, much like Eric Bieniemy, if it doesn't work, okay. Back to the drawing board, okay? But there are some people out there that wanted Aaron Rodgers. Like, Aaron's going to be available. Aaron Rodgers is available this offseason. Unlike Derek Carr, he's not going to be released. He won't be free, and he won't be cheap. Neither will Derek Carr. He won't be cheap either, but Aaron Rodgers said he was willing to take a pay cut. The man's making $50 million a year, the highest, per average, AAV of any quarterback in the league, any player of the league, rather. $50 million. That'll be surpassed probably this offseason. But right now, it's the most in the league. He said he's willing to take a pay cut. A pay cut to what? $40 million? Still a hell of a lot of money, right? For a guy that looked like a shell of himself last year. I think it had a lot to do with the injury to his thumb, but that's no here, and some of the inconsistencies with him and his receivers, but that's no here nor there. The bottom line is, I think Aaron Rodgers can still do it. That's a pretty hefty price tag to pay to find out, and you're going to have to give up some draft capital. There are teams that are going to be waiting to see what Rodgers is going to do. Like, the Jets are interested in Derek Carr, but they're like, yeah, I kind of want to see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do first. But hey, keep your phone near you, all right? I'll give you a call after I find out what Aaron's going to do. Saints are like, hey, we want you now. Don't listen to everybody else. We ain't even chasing after Aaron Rodgers. We want you. Well, part of that is because the Packers made it abundantly clear that, hey, we really prefer to trade you to an AFC team, buddy. Really don't want you to stick around in the NFC. It's already tough enough. Don't want to have to deal with you twice a year or deal with you, at bare minimum once. Have to still see you and you improve a roster in this conference. And now we got to try to make the playoffs over a team that you're leading Rather you go over there and fight in the AFC with the rest of all those good quarterbacks. Saints are like, hey, Derek, we want you, buddy. We want you. We'll see how it goes. I don't think he's coming here, and I'm not interested. But Derek B did ask me, now that he's a free agent, now you don't have to give up any draft capital. Now you don't have to pay him $42 million this year, $43 million next year. Are you interested? Nah, I'm good. Let's see. I talked about Daron Payne already, and him getting under the conversation being started there. That's a good sign that they want him back. And I've already told you. You listen to Ron over the last month, roughly, since the season ended, and just how he's choosing his words. I read to you what he said about Daron, how he did it the right way. How he's going to be paid pretty much. And he deserves it. And we have to pay him. And he made himself a lot of money. And we're glad to have to pay him. He's getting his money here, unless he doesn't want to be here. And I don't think that's Daron Payne. I think he wants to be here. So as long as they show him the money, I think he's going to be willing to sign on the dotted line. But those conversations are just getting underway. That's a good sign. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. So, I'm always a little later to the, draft game. I don't, I watch college football, but I'd be lying to you if I told you I was the most devout college football fan. I'm only loyal to one sport. Okay. I'm only all in on one sport, and that's football, NFL. I'm a fan of teams in other sports, and I keep tabs of my favorite team, but I'm not necessarily keeping tabs on the rest of the league, not as closely as I do in the NFL. And so in college, if a game's on, it doesn't really matter what game on. If I'm not doing anything, it'll be on. Maybe even end up being background noise. But I was listening to Mel Kiper and Todd McShay talk about this year's draft class, and it sounds like it's not a very good one. And I heard, I'm not one of these people that live and die with the Senior Bowl, and I heard a lot of players left the Senior Bowl this year. They practiced for a couple of days, but did not participate in the game. And they said it's kind of getting out of hand now. Look, it's a different world that we're living in now with NIL deals and how agents are telling their clients to, go about these extracurricular activities and these all-star games. Look, man, you got a lot to lose and not a whole hell of a lot to gain by playing in some of these games. If you go to the NFL draft advisory board and they tell you they've got a second round grade on you, you going out and playing may make you a first round pick. It may make you some money, but if you go out there and you hurt yourself, you're not a second round pick anymore. That's for damn sure. So what's more important? You finding your way potentially, and it's no guarantee, potentially finding your way into the first round, or you just making sure you lock up that second round pick and get that money. And a lot of these agents are telling their guys, hey, there's no benefit to you doing anything other than your pro day. You don't really need to do a whole hell of a lot of, Senior Bowl practice. You meet everybody, you go out there, you practice a couple of days. You don't need to play in that game. Combine, you go out there, you measure, you can jump through. You don't need to run. You don't need to do the on the field drills. Do that stuff at your pro day. Run your 40 at your pro day. You can jump again if you like. You can do that at the combine. You don't like your broad jump. You don't like your vert. Do it again at your pro day. But on the field drills and all that, you don't need to do that stuff. Do it one time. So that brings me to the point of, if it's a bad draft, talent-wise, I listened to Todd McShay and Mel Kiper talk about struggling to put together a first-round mock draft because McShay said, I only have 18 players that have first-round grades. Or I think it was Mel Kiper. No, it was McShay. Because he said a coach called him and lambasted him about one of the guys he had in the first round, and he said, that coach said, I talked to all the other coaches in the league, the other 31, and they all said they had a second-round grade on that guy. And McShay says, I do too, but I can't stop my first-round mock draft at 18 players. I have to fill out 32 guys. So it's one of those drafts, okay? And it's going to be interesting to see how you navigate a draft like this, because just because it's not the strongest draft in terms of top-tier talent doesn't mean you can't get quality football players. Everybody's board looks different. And you might have a board that has 93 players on it that you would be willing to draft, okay? And if you can get all, 9 of your draft picks out of those 93, you feel good. You might have a draftable grade on 122 players, and 5 of them may not get drafted at all. And if you can get one of those guys to sign as an undrafted guy, you feel really good. So we'll see how Washington navigates this draft. We need a lot of stuff, quarterback included, but they're making it seem like this might not be the draft. Last year was the draft everybody was excited about. You had all that COVID carryover, all the guys that stayed in school for 17 years, and all those guys were coming out all at once. And so you saw players that I thought could have been drafted in the 4th, 5th round. I wanted a guy here out of Nebraska in JoJo Doman in the 4th round. He's on the Kansas City Chiefs roster, and he's a huge part of what they did this year. He started the Super Bowl undrafted. I had a 4th round grade on him. Chiefs got him undrafted, and he was starting for them in the Super Bowl. That's not going to be the case this year. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Trevor Patch, writes, are you familiar with Landon? Just so you know, this feels real luckish. Feels real luckish to me. So first of all, Trev is a member of the MOBB. That wasn't. So I don't think that's really Trevor Patch. But Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Who writes, slip, fall, and then land the I knew it wasn't him. Yeah, because like I said, he's a member of the MOBB first and foremost. And he didn't ask questions. When Trev, sends a super chat, he's gonna get whatever he's got on his mind off his mind. So good try, but come on, man. I'm all over it, bro. I'm all over it. Anyway, I digress. Trevor Patch again, aka Luck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, EB gonna be a college head coach. He can mire them kids. He actually, I think has done that once before. I think he was the head coach. Don't get me to lying here. I think he was the head coach of this alma mater though, at Colorado. He could have just been a positional coach there. I can look it up. I don't even need to speculate. I know he went back to Colorado, and I feel like he was the head coach there. But I could be wrong. He could have just been a coordinator there. He was the offensive coordinator. He was a running backs coach, and then he went back there in 2011 as their offensive coordinator before getting the Chiefs running backs coach job and then offensive coordinator job in 2018. So, yeah, he was just the offensive coordinator there. I had seen an article that said that former Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman was sniffing around the Stanford job. I'd forgot all about the fact that I forgot his name. He always does the NFL draft with the NFL Network. David Shaw. I forgot he had retired and that Stanford job was available. He had been there forever, it seemed like. So there was a little bit of intrigue there. I don't know if they've already filled that void. I would assume they filled that vacancy already. But if he doesn't get the job with Washington, maybe that's what he ultimately will do, is go to the collegiate ranks. Maybe he'll sit down for a year. I don't know. It could turn ugly if he doesn't get hired. I mean, you already got a lot of people raising eyebrows right now at the fact that he hasn't been hired, and people keep vouching for him. And then, there's a couple out there, I've already said, like Shady McCoy, who is a strong detractor, but most people are vouching for this dude and saying he should get an opportunity, and he hasn't. And if he doesn't get one this time, now we're not even talking about head coach anymore. We're talking about a lateral move to offensive coordinator. He can't get that. And I feel like had he not been a part of this Chiefs staff that made it to the Super Bowl and won it, he probably would have gotten an offensive coordinator job already. I think it was more of a timing issue with the offensive coordinator situation. Had he been eliminated in, say, the divisional round when they played Jacksonville, he would have had an offensive coordinator job already. I feel that way. But teams aren't waiting around. If I can interview a few guys, I'm not going to sit here and wait forever. I got other shit to do, which is why I was so disappointed with Washington waiting to interview, Greg Roman. But I told you guys yesterday, I'm not sure. I don't know all the facts. Maybe Roman, after he departed with the Ravens, was like, yo, I'm going to take a couple weeks to myself just to gather my thoughts, recharge the battery, and then I'm going to hit the ground running. I read a tweet, I think because Chris Russell, who I rarely agree with, we don't see things the same way. He asked the exact same question that I asked. I saw someone added me so that I could see it, because I literally brought that up, and then they must have run across it on their timeline, and then they added me. So I saw it on Twitter, and he's like, what the hell took them so long to do this? If they knew they wanted to interview him, why did they wait until this week? It doesn't make any sense. That's all I wanted to know was, what are we doing? What was the point of doing that? Like, you knew you wanted to talk to this dude. Eric Bieniemy, and I said this already, should have been the last guy that you were interviewing, and then you're making a decision. But they still got to Greg, Roman before Bieniemy, so it still doesn't matter. They got to him yesterday, and now Bieniemy will round out their search, and then they'll make a decision after interviewing him on Thursday. And so we'll see what happens. But if he doesn't get this job, there isn't another NFL opportunity for him. He can go to somebody's staff and be like an assistant head coach, where you're just kind of hanging around, helping out. They create a title for you. But I mean, how embarrassing is that if you're Eric Bieniemy? Like, he's got to get this job in Washington. At this point, it's not optional. You can't win the Super Bowl again, be the offensive coordinator, and everyone keeps saying you're a huge part of why they've had success, and then not get the job, and then be out of work completely in the NFL. Anyway. See if we got any more comments. We do. We got one here from Christopher McLaughlin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Chris writes, hey Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope you are feeling better and all is well with the family. I'm feeling a lot better. It took a while, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. That cold was something serious. But I'm feeling a lot better now. Thank you. I hope all is well with you and your family, in as well. How much autonomy do you believe Bieniemy or the offensive coordinator will have to run the offense? How do you see his approach being impacted by Rivera wanting to run first? So Bieniemy said, and Ron heard this through the grapevine, and Ron said it in an interview, that he's heard that Bieniemy wants to go somewhere where there's a defensive coach as the head guy. Why? And I've already explained this to you. We've already had this conversation. Why? Because it gives him total autonomy to run the offense without anybody looking over his shoulder, helicopter coaching him. And he said one of the things he really appreciated about Andy Reid was that Andy delegated and Andy let everybody be themselves. So you didn't have to come to work trying to fit into whatever, the head coach wanted you to be. You got to be yourself. And he said he really appreciated that, and he said there was no egos in Kansas City. If my idea wasn't the one that they went with, I was cool with that. If Andy's idea wasn't good enough, Andy was cool with that. And he said, we all checked our egos at the door. And so he's looking for an opportunity where he's not going to have someone hovering over him, telling him what he should or shouldn't call, what kind of offense he wants to run. He wants to go. That's why, because if you go somewhere with an offensive head coach, even if you have success, people are going to think, well, did that coach have any say-so? Did that coach, have input as to what was being done? There won't be any questions about that here in Washington. If he's successful, no one's going to say, well, Ron Rivera probably had something to do with that. No, they're not. They're not going to say anything of the sort, So he wants to go somewhere where he's going to have no shackles and he's not going to be told what he can and can't do. And if they're successful offensively, he's going to get the credit. That's here. That's Washington. I just described to you Washington. So do I think that Ron wanting to run football? I think Ron was making a statement that if we're going to have issues at quarterback, we're going to have to run the football. When we got Taylor Heineke in there, we got to run the football. If Sam Howell is in there, he's a young quarterback. We're going to have to run the football until we see that Sam Howell is capable of taking over a game with his right arm or his legs or a combination of the two. We're going to have to run the football. I think Ron's going to, convey that message like, hey, we're going to roll with Sam Howell. Second-year quarterback, has some talent, got some wheels, can throw it, but he's young. He's green, But this is a blank canvas, my man. You do whatever it is you want, Do with it what you please. So I don't think there's going to be any restrictions on him if he comes here, which is what he's looking for. And Ron already knows what he's looking for. Or any OC for that matter, whomever takes the job. Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, 100% wide receiver equals offensive strength. Focus should be to change it to the O-line. I have no problems with that. I never said that I wanted this offense to be centered around the receivers because that's how you win in this league. I only said that because that's what we have. Okay. And I agree with you. We need to take the focus from these receivers and put it on improving this offensive line. Now, I'm not saying that the line will be better than our receivers, but I was perfectly fine with our offensive line the way it was 2 years ago. I told you guys we're not a run-heavy offensive line. We're more of a finesse group, but we pass protect our ass off, and we can run it a little bit, but not a whole hell of a lot. Like, you're not going to be putting teams' dicks in the dirt. Like, we're not going to just line up. We got 3 downs to get 10 yards to ice this game. We're not that team. We're not getting 3 on first down, 5 on second down, and on 3rd and 2, run and get 3 more, and now we can take knees. No, we're going to punt that football. We're going to punt the football because we're not getting 10 yards when they know we're running it. But guess what? When we got to drop back and pass it, you're not getting to the quarterback. I was perfectly fine with the offensive line that featured, Morgan Moses at the right tackle position and, fill in the blank at the left tackle position. Because we had some, shit going on with Trent Williams, and then it ended up being Cornelius Lucas and this guy and that guy. At the end of the day, I was fine with that line we had 2 years ago in 2020. Perfectly fine with the line we had in 2020. With Sheriff at guard, Rouillet at center, Eric Flowers at guard. Perfectly fine with that line. I believe he was here in 2020. No, he wasn't. Ron got rid. They traded him. No, he left at the end of 19, got a 3-year deal. He wasn't here. They traded for him after the 2020 season. So whomever was at right guard or left guard, rather, I was fine with that line. Hell, the 2021 line wasn't even half bad. When we had, it wasn't as good as the 2020 line, but it wasn't as, when we had Chase Rouillet at center before he got hurt against Green Bay. But I said all that to say this. We need to upgrade the line. If the line, like what we watched in the Super Bowl is, to me, it's like an indication of, hey, this is what you should be striving to achieve. You should be striving to attain what the Chiefs did, what the Eagles have done, which is the Chiefs did it out of necessity. They got their brains bashed in the 2020 Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. All right. Brains bashed in. And they said, that's not happening again. They went out and they revamped that entire offensive line. The Eagles have always been building their offensive line. Always. Lane Johnson. And they took Jordan Mailata in the 7th round as a rugby player and developed him. Homegrown talent. After drafting Andre Dillard in the 1st round and him not working out. The Eagles went out and they spent money on Brandon Brooks. He ended up playing well for them for a couple of years before injuries took effect. But they just kept drafting guys. Jason Kelce has been there forever, and he's a future Hall of Famer, and then they just filled in those guard spots. Whether they drafted a guy like Nate Herbig at one point, he's since moved on, but they filled those gaps at guard. And to me, the 3 most important positions on the offensive line, 2 tackle, center. You get those positions filled, we can find guards that can play. Whether it's via the draft or free agency, you can find a guy in there. You better lock up tackle and center. And we haven't done that here in Washington. And, some of it by circumstance. The center, you just can't predict injuries every year. But the 2 tackle positions, you drafted Sam Cosmi. He can't stay healthy. And then you went out and you got Charles Leno Jr., and he's been solid. A lot of you think he stinks, just like you think Kendall Fuller stinks. Neither one of them stink. Neither one of them are great. They're very solid football players. You can do a hell of a lot worse than both of those guys. Could you upgrade both of them? Yes. Do you have to upgrade them? No. So, I don't disagree with you, Derek B, about changing it over to the offensive line. But that takes time. Not going to happen more likely than not in one off season. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Rob U, writes, what up, Lou? What's up, Rob U? No veteran QB. Roll with Sam, and if it doesn't work, hit the reset next year. Build around him. Put him in a position to succeed. I think that's going to be the sentiment of most fans, is we're sick and tired of the veteran route. We've done it. 2 strikes already. We're not looking to swing and miss again. We'd rather just stick with Sam and see what Sam can provide us with, if anything. I think more so than the veteran route. Because I think if If there were a veteran out there that we could get our hands on that we thought was really good, we'd do it. I think we just more so than anything else, we want a guy that we can call our own. More so than, I don't want a veteran quarterback. Because if the right veteran was available, I think most of us would do it. I don't think it's about veteran quarterback. Hold on a second. Excuse me, that one snuck me. I don't think it's about a veteran quarterback. I think this is more along the lines of we want a guy that we can say is homegrown product. Like, this is our guy. Like, you watch what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts, and you want that, right? You want a guy. I don't know what Daniel Jones is going to ultimately be for the Giants if they re-sign him this offseason or not, but you saw him kind of come of age this year. He's still Daniel Jones, and he reverted back to his original form in the playoffs. But you want a guy that you can say, hey, this is ours. A guy you can grow with. You're going to take some lumps, but you see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's more so what we are clamoring for as a fan base, is getting a guy that's young, preferably on a rookie deal, and having him grow. And then you don't mind paying a guy that you drafted, that you watched grow and blossom into the quarterback that now you have to pay $62 million per year to. You're like, yo, I'll do it. He's our guy. Got to keep him here. I think that's what we want. More than I don't want a veteran quarterback. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, King of the North, writes, who do you think the Eagles hire at OC? Roman might be a good fit. I don't know what they're going to do. I would assume when you got a program like that and you've had the success with Jalen Hurts, remember, I said this on either the post-game show, overtime of the Super Bowl, or during the telecast itself, when he was having, in the midst of one of the best Super Bowl performances individually by a quarterback we've ever seen. I said that if Shane Steichen gets a job in Indy, and he ultimately has, then you don't want to have change around Jalen Hurts, because that was the thing that Eagles fans were holding on to, was that they thought he was going to improve this year, because for the first time since high school, he didn't have a different offense, a different coordinator, new verbiage to learn. He was able to be comfortable with the playbook, and he was able to just work on his game, not having to work on, where I need to be in the playbook, what progressions I need to be going through, the language, none of that. He was able to just focus in on, how do I get better as a quarterback? And if I'm the Eagles, I'm looking to continue going down that road of what I've built already. So if there's a quarterback's coach, if there's, anybody there that you believe in, you promote from within. Now, if that guy doesn't exist, and I've already said this, when offensive coordinators get snatched away and become head coaches, they usually bring a couple of guys that were on the staff with them. If they buddied up with a couple of dudes, if they're really close to the quarterback's coach, well, that's my offensive coordinator when I leave. If I'm really close to the wide receivers coach, well, I'm taking him with me. He's my offensive coordinator. And if there's a guy that was, an offensive assistant, so he was an assistant wide receivers coach, well, I'm taking him. He's going to be my receivers coach. That's usually how that works. So I'll be interested to see if he reaches back and grabs anybody from Philly when he starts to fill out his cabinet and his staff, or if he kind of goes outside and has other guys that he's close to, because he's had other jobs. He was in Los Angeles with the Chargers in Justin Herbert's rookie season. And so he may have some guys that he worked with when he was in Los Angeles with the Chargers that he may want to reach and bring with him to Indy. I don't know. We'll see. If Greg Roman, is available, and it obviously sounds like he is. He's interviewing for NFL offensive coordinator jobs now. And somebody had said, well, maybe Eric Bieniemy goes to Philadelphia. I mean, maybe. You never know. I just said that we're the only show left in town. Well, obviously the Eagles just had their offensive coordinator plucked from them. So that's another job that's available. Maybe he goes to Philadelphia. Maybe Eric Bieniemy goes to Philadelphia if he doesn't come here. He's got options still. I don't know. Roman, to me, might be a good fit for Philadelphia. They run a similar offense to what he did in Baltimore, but the biggest difference is, and they got Dallas Goedert, right? They got tight end options. The biggest difference is A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they got weapons at receiver, and his offenses, and again, may not be fair to Greg Roman, but his offenses have not been wide receiver friendly, okay? They've been offensive line, running back, and tight end friendly. And all of those components are ready-made in Philadelphia to be successful for Greg Roman. But then you got to deal. A.J. Brown was upset in a playoff win over the Giants in which they won 38-7. He was upset because Jalen Hurts overthrew him and he wasn't a part of the festivities. If he's upset about not getting touches in a 38-7 drubbing of a divisional foe, of a family member in a playoff game, what do you think is going to happen in a week 4 game where he's got 2 targets and 1 catch for 4 yards, and then it happens again the following week where he's got 3 targets, 2 catches for 11 yards? What do you think is going to happen then? Again, and I could be underrating Greg Roman's ability to get the ball to the receivers. But from what we've seen, it was that way in San Francisco. Their receivers didn't get shine in San Francisco. Crabtree was all right, but that was the Vernon Davis show when he was there in San Francisco. That was the Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker show. He got Delaney Walker paid, did Greg Roman. If you recall, that was the Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker show. He goes to Baltimore, and they go through a series of tight ends, and they're always loaded at the tight end position. I don't think that's coincidental. So, I don't know. I don't know if he's a good fit for a team that has the explosiveness that the Eagles have, and they have it at receiver. I don't know if that's a good fit or not. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, what do you believe is the ceiling for this offense? And do you believe the number one issue is execution or play calling, especially red zone, and why? The biggest issue for this team, I think, is the actual play calling itself. Now, I think execution isn't that far behind, because there were times where Scott Turner, I didn't necessarily love the call, but it could have worked if we would have executed better. There were times, I'll give you a great example. Against the Giants, the second game, there's a shot down the sideline, if you recall, to, I want to say it was Curtis Samuel, who catches the ball but barely stays in bounds. This is a big gain, man. This is probably like a 27, 30-yard gain down the sideline. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, man, we just got a big chunk play. That should have been a damn touchdown. Curtis Samuel is running down the sidelines. They turned him free. The corner thought, that he had safety help over the top, so he turns him loose. The safety is nowhere to be found. If that ball's put on him where he catches it in stride up the sideline without having to jump and fall out of bounds, that's a touchdown. Okay? So that was execution. That wasn't a play call. That was poor execution. But in saying that, how many times? There were countless times, so many that I can't even recall, where we said, what the hell was that? What kind of a play call was that? You go back to the Tennessee game. We got 3 chances None of them were even remotely close, and they were all terrible play calls. The fact that we never used any of our size in the red zone. These are play calling issues, right? The 4th and 1 toss to Jonathan Williams. That's number one, a personnel issue. 2, a play calling issue. You're running a toss with Curtis Samuel cracking down on one of the guys that's routinely in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year in Myles Garrett. How is this supposed to work? That's a play calling issue. So, I mean, we can go on and on and on and on. This was a problem. The Giants game at the end. You get all the way down to the one, and yes, Terry had the penalty that probably wasn't even a penalty. But you still had ample opportunities. That's not a great Giants defense. Figure out a way to get in the end zone. Yeah, Curtis got held. Absolutely. We were never close to getting in the end zone. Play calling was, to me, which is why I said he had to go. It's the biggest problem. Execution wasn't that far behind, though. We did not execute well. There are times where we just lined up and said, hey, we need a yard. Let's line up and let's get this yard, and we couldn't do it. San Francisco is a great example of that. We lined up and we needed a yard to score a touchdown. That could have changed the whole tenor of that 49ers game. We dominated that first half of that 49ers game. And we had nothing to show for it. Dominated. We should have been up 21-7. I think it was a tie ball game at 10 or some shit like that. We had nothing to show for it. You gotta be able to execute too. So, and you asked me why, and I just think you gotta be, and Ryan Fitzpatrick said it, and we've talked about it on this program numerous times. I told you, I want my coordinator to be a guy that takes the pieces that he's given, doesn't gripe, doesn't complain, doesn't say, hey, I wish I had this. Well, this would fit my scheme better. Doesn't take his scheme and say, well, I don't care what I have. This is my scheme, and you're going to acquiesce, and you guys are going to fit into what it is I do. I want a guy that's going to look at his parts and says, okay, hey, you, Cam Sims, what do you do well? Okay, big guy, got some size, can go up and get the football. Okay, I know how I'm going to use you. Curtis Samuel, what do you do well? Get in and out of breaks, can break people off, a dynamo in space, more physical than people realize with the ball in his hands. I can do a lot with you. Okay, put you off to the side. I kind of got an idea of what I'm going to do with you. Terry McLaurin, what do you do well? You run slants well, run after the catch, very physical, can get on a guy, can make contested catches. Okay, I got an idea how I'm going to utilize you. Okay, De'Ami Brown, you run really fast in a straight line. I know what I'm going to do with you. Okay, got that. All right, Antonio Gibson, you got a pretty unique skill set. What do you do well? Okay, you can catch it out of the backfield. Got some speed to get to the outside. Kind of big for a running back, man. You got some size on you. Okay, I got an idea how I can use. Like, that's what I want my coordinator to do, is to come in, assess the landscape, and see what all of these guys have at their disposal. And now we're going to build an offense around that. And now I'm going to call my game around their skill set, and then let the situation dictate how I decide to deploy them. We're in the red zone. We're at the 6-yard line. This is Cam Sims territory. This is Logan Thomas territory. This is Cole Turner territory. All right, now we starting to get close to where I can use this size a little bit. All right, 3rd and 4. This is a Terry slant. Shit, how many times did I say, we watched the Super Bowl together, I said, hey, we getting 4 slants to A.J. Brown. We got 5. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They ain't stop it yet. Keep running the shit. Barrett Downing, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy BD writes, hey, Lou, if Ron gets booted with the new owner, who would you like to see as head coach? Really, at this point, I wouldn't want to see that happen because, first of all, this was not a great cycle for coaches because there weren't a lot of good jobs available, man. This just was a pretty bad cycle, honestly. Like Sean Payton was like, I told Sean, I was like, Sean, bro, like you really don't have to take a job this year, man. He was like, but see, this is what you're missing, Louis T. I'm not a free agent. In order for me to work, that team that wants me has to be willing to give up draft capital to get me. I said, shit, good point. I didn't even think about that. He said, yeah, Denver's willing to give up what it's going to take to get me out of New Orleans. Not everybody's willing to do that. I got you. But there weren't a lot of great jobs. But even with that said, all of the guys that you would have been talking about as candidates that you might have been interested in, they're gone. They've gotten jobs already. They've settled in somewhere else. So if you fire Ron, who the hell are you going to hire at this point? I mean, the pool was already pretty small to choose from anyway. The candidacy pool was already a small one. So I that wouldn't be wise. You know, if a guy like Sean Payton was still sitting out there, okay, I get it. He's not. I don't really know if there's a guy out there right now that you say, hey, I'm willing to get rid of Ron Rivera for this guy right now. I don't know if that guy exists. Let's see. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, RG3 and KC, drafted QBs who went to the playoffs in their first full season as starters. How next? I hope it doesn't end for him the way that it did for those other two. But I'd love it for him to be in the playoffs his first year as first full year as a starter, and you just hit the ground running and never look back. Unfortunately, those two had hiccups along the way. The thing that people never really gave Kirk Cousins credit for when he was here was his availability. Like, one of the things that I have a greater appreciation for with Kirk Cousins now, after him leaving, that I don't know if I truly appreciated when he was here, was his toughness and his ability to be available every single week. Because since he's left, I don't think we've had a season start to finish with the same guy under center week 1 all the way to week 17, now 18. Obviously, the first year he left, Alex Smith gets hurt and breaks his leg, and then all hell breaks loose at the quarterback position. The next year was 19. They drafted Dwayne. That started out with Case Keenum. Then it was weird with Dwayne getting in. Then it was back to Keenum. Then it was Dwayne to finish up. 20, Rivera gets here, starts with Dwayne. Then it's Kyle Allen. Then it's Alex Smith. Then it's Heineke. Yeah. 21, it's literally Ryan Fitzpatrick for two possessions. And then it's Heineke. Then it's Garrett Gilbert. Then it's Heineke again. And so forth and so forth. You get it. 2022 wasn't any better. Wentz, Heineke, Wentz again, Heineke again, and then Sam Howell, right? Or they wanted to go back to Heineke again. We haven't had, I said all that to say this, we haven't had a guy since Kirk, 2017, start week 1, finish the season week 17 with no gaps in between. I appreciate Kirk even more so now than I did then because of what we've gone through since he's left. I just like to see Sam Howell stay healthy, be consistent enough that he can start the season and finish the season. And whether he's good or not, let us go off of 17 games of Sam Howell, not 12 or 10 because of injury or anything crazy. Can we just get a guy to start and finish the season? That would be awesome. So it'd be great to have him come in first year, lead us to the playoffs. But then what? We've seen that movie before. You just gave us a couple of guys that might fit into that category. Then what? What do you follow that up with? We'll see what happens. Washington football fan, WGIL. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, "Hey, Lou, what's up, W. Gill?" Says, "You believe that the Super Bowl was 100% Andy's calls? If that's so, what does Eric B do?" I don't think it was 100% his call. I said until I hear otherwise and I see otherwise, I'm going to believe most of it is. But I heard it out of Andy Reid's own mouth. He's like, yeah, those motions, that was all my assistance. I didn't have anything to do with that. Now, he knew the concepts. This is the thing I love about Andy Reid is that his voice, because he's the head coach, doesn't necessarily resonate more so over the rest of his assistants. Like everyone has a voice, and their voice is just as loud as Andy's if they're able to contribute to the discussion that they're having, to the game plan that they're putting together. And so Andy's like, my assistants, it was their idea for the motion. You know, the concept of the play, that was me, but the motion and how we were going to attack them, that was all my assistants. Is Eric Bieniemy included in that? I would assume so, but I can't say, right? So I know Eric Bieniemy had a part, a role. If we were giving out slices of pie as to credit to be given to these coaches on the staff of Andy Reid, including Andy Reid, for the success of the Chiefs offense, a large portion of the pie, every bit of 70 to 80% would go to Andy Reid. But you would probably divvy up that last 30, 25, 20% amongst those assistant coaches. How big of a piece does Eric Bieniemy get? Don't know. That's the problem. That's why I think part of the reason he hasn't been hired yet is because nobody truly knows what slice of the pie does he get. Is he even getting any? No dessert for you. Does he even get a slice of the pie? I think he does. I just don't know how big of a slice. So I said during the Super Bowl, and I was adamant that I'm not giving Eric Bieniemy any credit for anything. To me, everything's Andy Reid until otherwise notified. I listened to Andy Reid several different interviews post-game of the Super Bowl, and he literally kept giving credit, not just to Eric Bieniemy. It would have been one thing if he kept saying Eric Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy. That would have said to me, boy, he's trying to get rid of EB bad, and he's trying to sell anybody who's out there listening that this guy deserves a job so he can get the hell from up out of my house and up under my wing and go do his own thing. Because I got other guys that I got to promote, and I'm trying to run a factory here, and he's slowing up progress. He's got to go. But it wasn't just Eric Bieniemy that he was giving credit to. It was Greg Lewis. It was this guy. It was that guy. He threw out random names that I hadn't heard of, and I'm like, okay, they got a whole group here, a brain trust, if you will, of guys that are contributing to the success. Bieniemy is a part of it, and so he gets a piece of the pie now. Just I don't know what size of the pie it would be. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Rob, who writes, thoughts on Jamin at middle linebacker if they don't re-sign 55. Jamin Davis, to me, is not a middle linebacker. He is a strong side or weak side linebacker. And you can pick. I think he's probably better off being a weak side linebacker, but we don't really have that in this defense, honestly speaking, because you're only playing two backers. So one's an outside backer. It really, you can determine based off of formation if it's weak side or strong side. It doesn't really matter, but he's an outside backer in this defense, and he thrives in that. I think he's better suited for that. When we drafted him, I said that, and I think they figured that out after year one, and that's why they put him outside. He needs to be coupled with someone that will allow him to not have to think. I don't like my Jamin Davis thinking. Jamin Davis thinking is Jamin Davis thinking. Give me Jamin Davis just running out loose, wild, and free. That's when he's going to maximize his talent. Let somebody else do the thinking. Let somebody else line everybody else, the rest of the defense up. Let somebody else get the defensive call and wear the green dot and make sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be. Just let Jamin Davis go out and play ball. So I would not be on board with that. We would either need to re-sign 55, go out and get somebody in free agency, and there are a lot of good linebackers, inside linebackers that will be available this offseason. If you're not opposed to spending a little bit of bread there are guys that will be available. If you are not looking to do that, then you need to hit the draft. And I can't tell you what that looks like. Again, I already told you, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, and they're not the only ones I've heard this from. Matt Miller of Bleacher Report, all these guys, they've all kind of echoed the same sentiments. This is not particularly the strongest of drafts. So there are some positions that are stronger than others. But most years, when we look at linebackers in the draft, it's top heavy. You better get yours quick while it's there to be got, because, supplies are only going to last so long. Get it while supplies last. So, but in saying that, every year, teams like Detroit find a Malcolm Rodriguez in the 6th, 7th round. Where's our Malcolm Rodriguez? Why can't we find one of those guys? Anyway, I don't think Jamin Davis is built for middle linebacker. Put him outside, let him do his thing there, and you need to pair him with somebody. That's what I feel. Broke Hamster, stand up. You are officially the newest member of the MOBB Broke Hamster. Welcome aboard. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show Broke Hamster some love. Welcome him with open arms. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. Broke Hamster, welcome to the squad. All right. Got a super chat here from Luck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Luck writes, I can confirm everything before this chat wasn't luckish. I was asleep. I can also confirm everything after this may be luckish. I don't trust you. Look, you have to understand this, bro. I'm going to assume, and you may be telling the truth here, I'm going to assume that everything that is sketchy is you. So I'm charging shit to your account that probably should. You got a lot of erroneous charges on your account. You should probably look at your billing statement. It's a lot of shit you should be calling and say, hey, man, I didn't make this purchase. This wasn't me. But I'm charging a lot of shit. I'm charging everything to your damn account. So people out here doing shit under the auspice of it's going to be you, and they're getting away with shit. But that's just what you have cultivated. That's the state of mind you've put me in. So you have nobody to blame for that but yourself. Just understand that. Anyway, Robert Gamble Jr., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Robert writes, what do you think is going to be our main free agent focus? That's a great question. I think that the main focus will be on the offensive line. I think they're going to look to, because one, you don't have a center. If you don't, do something with Chase Roullier, but I don't think they trust Chase Roullier. Tyler Larson is a free agent. I don't think they're going to re-sign him because he's been injured just like Chase Roullier has been the last 2 seasons. So I think they're going to do something on that interior of the offensive line. You can't bring back those 2 guards. You have to do something there. I think you have to wipe the entire interior clean. Again, Chase Roullier, wouldn't mind having him back, but you got to restructure his deal. And you got to make it so that if he doesn't play, it's incentive-based. If he doesn't play, he doesn't get paid. But you still got to do something there because you can't find yourself in that same predicament if he were to get hurt again. You just can't put yourself in that position. So I think you got to upgrade both guards, and you got to do something at center. And the likelihood is, while you could do that, you could address those positions in the draft. I don't think you want to leave it to chance and just say, we're going to get, all of those pieces from the draft. I think you're okay with going out and spending a little bit of money like you did on Wes Schweitzer. Guard isn't an expensive position as long as you're not going top of the market. We're not looking for top of the market guard. Okay. We're not looking for a Brandon Sheriff type. We want a serviceable guy that can come in here and hold us down, be healthy, and be productive. That's all we're looking for. That's all they were looking for when they went out and got those 2 Carolina Panthers that they stuck in at the guards at Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner. They weren't looking for top of the market, elite players. They were looking for guys that could come in and be serviceable. So I think offensive line is going to be the main focus, personally. I think they're going to look to upgrade, and even right tackle is in play because I think you're done with the Sadiq Charles experiment. I think that's over with. Okay. Don't think he's cut out for this league, or at least not here. Maybe in a better system where his athleticism is on display in a zone run blocking scheme or something, he may be able to flourish and thrive there. He's just not cut out for this particular scheme. He hasn't evolved into the player that they thought he would at this point, which is fine. But Sam Cosmi can't stay healthy. I think they're thinking about just kicking him inside the guard on a full-time basis. And so you may need a right tackle too. So I think offensive line is going to be the main focus. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes. Pat, JB, Allen, Herbert, LJ, T-Law, A-Rod, Hurts, M-Staff, Dak. So you just named a bunch of quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Dak. I'm assuming this is order. This is your ranking of quarterbacks. So you got Patrick Mahomes 1, Joe Burrow 2, Josh Allen 3, Justin Herbert 4, Lamar Jackson 5, Trevor Lawrence 6, stop calling this man. Keep seeing A-Rod and thinking of Alex Rodriguez. Aaron Rodgers 7th, Jalen Hurts 8, Matthew Stafford 9, Dak Prescott 10. That's your top 10 list. I agree with your top 4. And you know what? I think 5. Even though Lamar's been banged up the last 2 years, we were talking about Lamar in the MVP discussion after the first 5-6 weeks of the season. He's still electric and dynamic when he's healthy. He's still that guy. I remember after the first month and a half of the season, we were saying, hey, Lamar is right in there for MVP. So I still think now he's got to, obviously this is a big year for Lamar, especially if he stays in Baltimore, because whether they get a deal done or not, they're going to have a new coordinator in Todd Monken, and everyone's been blaming Greg Roman for the offense and the lack of receiver production, and what's holding Lamar back is Greg Roman, right? This ancient offense. And okay, fine. Todd Monken is there now. If Lamar stays in Baltimore, which we don't know, we cannot confirm that at this current juncture. They could trade him still. If he is, in Baltimore, let's see what he does. But I like him at 5. I would put Aaron Rodgers, if he's still, I would probably put him at 5. Lamar at 6. And I would probably put Trevor Lawrence at 7, Hurts at 8. Matthew Stafford at 9, Dak. I'd have to look at the rest of the league. I don't want to leave anybody out. You probably got the 10 best quarterbacks. I mean, is Dak in that conversation? I don't know. Maybe somebody else can take his spot. I'd have to sit down, assess the rest of the league, to see if I believe in a quarterback a little bit more than you do. But it's hard to believe that Dak Prescott, with what he did last year, is in the top 10. I think he's right on the outside. I've always been a Dak Prescott hovering around 10. And I said you could probably put him anywhere from 8 to 12. And obviously after last year's season, he's probably closer to 12 than he is 8. But if you wanted to, make an excuse for Aaron Rodgers and say his thumb was a problem, probably could say the same thing about Dak's thumb. So, but the thumb is one thing. decision making has nothing to do with your thumb. Like Aaron Rodgers, you could see his wasn't a decision making problem. His was like inaccurate. That's never been a thing for him. So you could easily say no chemistry with his receivers, and now the thumb's bothering him. He wasn't throwing picks where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you seeing there? Like, you just threw it right to a defender. Like, that's a bad decision. You can't go there with the foot. We weren't saying that about Aaron Rodgers. We were saying that about Dak. So that has nothing to do with your thumb. So I'd like to think that if I sat down, I'd be able to find somebody to insert into that top 10 over Dak. But maybe not. Maybe you can't. But I'd like to think I could. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JP writes, good to see you as always, Lou. Likewise, JP. Could Hal be the guy, or will we have to turn to the 2023 draft when the new owners clean house? I mean, nobody knows the answer to that, JP. I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you that Sam Howell was going to be wildly successful next season, or we should take a quarterback this year. We should do whatever it takes to get to Chicago's #1 overall pick and get a guy and just save us the trouble of going through, 17 games of Sam Howell this upcoming season. But I don't have the answer for you. I'd love to tell you that he's going to be successful, but we don't know. He's got the tools to be successful, but who's the offensive coordinator? How does his offensive line, get built, and is it good enough to protect him and give him time to do what he needs to do? Does he have a strong run game that can support him? These are all questions that we have. We'll see all of these things. It starts with the coordinator. That's going to happen this week, probably. And then from there, you go to improving the offensive line. That starts in March with free agency. And then you conclude that with the draft. And then we go from there. Got your coordinator. You upgraded the offensive line. Now let's see what we can do. Mega 412. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Mega 412 writes, what up, Lou? Salutes. What's going on, Meg? You will never guess the new vegan item I dropped on my truck menu. Guess right, and I got a free tray for you. Now, see, I can't do that because, again, that's luckish. I start guessing, and then it's these nuts. So while that you may be legitimately asking me a question, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I feel bad, but Lux and Lux has already put me on notice. He said everything before this comment wasn't me, but now anything after this could be me. So I don't know. I can tell you this. I saw Chick-fil-A just put out a buffalo not buffalo. It was a Chick-fil-A cauliflower sandwich. So if you've been vegan long enough, then you know that one of the substitutes for chicken is cauliflower, because you can easily, it's similar to eggplant. If you're a vegan, eggplant is another go-to type of vegetable because a lot of times it takes on the taste of whatever you season it with. It doesn't have an overbearing taste. So cauliflower is something that you put buffalo seasoning on, you bread it up a little bit. It could pass as chicken. I'm not one of those people that allows cauliflower to pass as chicken, but you can do some things to cauliflower to make it taste good. And anyway, I digress. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, double up, who writes, sorry, Lou, I meant to say 2024 QB draft class. I know what you meant. And, it's funny because every year we do this. Oh, the next year's draft class is going to be loaded. And then we get to that draft class and it's like, yeah, it's all right. The next year's joint going to be crazy, though. I mean, you can't keep, kicking a can down the road. At some point, you have to make a decision. And until you got a guy, you should be trying every single year. Every single year. Unless you're currently in the process of evaluating a guy If you don't got a guy, you should be trying to find a guy every year. Every year. So, again, Sam is going to get the opportunity, which I think is going to stop us from drafting a quarterback, unless it's a later round quarterback that you're looking to develop, which I got no problems with, right? But Sam is going to have free reins to get it done this season. Even if Heineke's brought back, and I know Derek B has made the point that if Heineke's here, there's going to be a portion of the fan base that wants him to play. And that's fine. The fan base, Ron has already shown us that he didn't give two shits about what the fan base wants. Because he started Wentz. The fans were clamoring for Heineke after the first throw of the game, which was a pick. He didn't bench him. He threw another pick. And the chants got louder. He still didn't bench him. Then after the game, he tried to reinsert Taylor Heineke, and Heineke said, nah, bro. Let Sam have it. So he clearly doesn't give a shit of what we think. So whether the fan, like Heineke knows his role, and whether or not the fans want him in or not, Ron could care less. So I want Heineke here. I've already made that abundantly clear. I don't give a shit about any of that extra stuff. Heineke's the quintessential NFL backup. I've already laid this out for you. When I think of a backup quarterback, I think of a guy that's going to make some shit happen, whether positive or negative. Some shit's going down. What I don't want is Jacoby Brissett, because you're going to lose more games than win games with him, because he's going to come in, he's going to go 14 of 25 for 127 yards, one touchdown, no interception, or no touchdown, no interceptions, or no touchdown, one interception, and you're going to barely score 20 points, if that. You better have a damn good run game. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy that's going to come in and sling that bitch, and if he throws two picks, he throws two picks. One of them happens to go to the crib, so be it. But he's going to do some shit. And with the game on the line, he's going to respond. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. We need the FBI to look into how many identities were stolen by Luck. He's a wild man. Keep on the lookout. Look your credit cards and scores. I've already told y'all, man. Luck's a dangerous man. All right. And if you're hanging around Luck, you're guilty by association. So just be careful, man. Love Luck to death. All right. But I'm always on the lookout. All right. Always. I've always got a bolo out. And he's got so many damn aliases. You want to talk about identity theft and fraud? You need to look no further than Luck. He's stolen more identities than, LifeLock has protected. So, and what's the worst part is he'll steal your shit while you're sitting there. You in the comment section like, hey, wait a minute, that's not me. Hey. It's always funny when somebody gets jacked for the first time and they're like, hey, Louie, that's not me. I'm like, bro, I already know. You don't have to, that's always the best. Let's see. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up with rights. Glad you didn't fall for the free tray. Look, man, I told you, I'm a veteran, man. Okay, been doing this long enough, and I know you got me. You got me a couple of times early in the game. Trust me, I'm no fool. Mama didn't raise no fool. So I'd much rather be overly cautious. People say I'm shook. I saw just now I got PTSD. Call it whatever you want. I call it being extremely cautious and prepared. A wise man once told me, you ain't got to get ready if you stay ready. Oh, I'm ready for your ass now, Luck. Always ready. Anyway, I digress. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, Embiid just passed Iverson on quickest to get to 10K points. It's sad that I have to watch NBA now. Hire EB already. Come on now. Stop messing around. But this is the time you should be watching the NBA. Now there's no football to interfere. You like Sundays. What are you going to do with your Sundays now? Like they have usually a Sunday doubleheader, a game that comes on around noon, and then another one at 3:30, and that's your Sunday now. Like that's going to be Sundays for you. I'm pretty sure that USFL and the XFL may try to come in and fill those Sunday voids. I mean, for those of you who enjoy that, knock yourself out. But and I may dibble and dabble, but it's gonna be NBA basketball. Spring training just got underway today. That's right around the corner. You know, still got to wait till April for meaningful baseball games, but that'll be here before you know it. So this is the time you should be watching basketball. All right. So that's going to do it for me. I see no more comments. Your man, Louie T. I appreciate you guys joining me on the program. Remember, this, for all intents and purposes, is it for me until Tuesday. So I won't be back until after President's Day. And I know they're going to hire. I knew this shit was going to happen. They're going to hire an offensive coordinator while I'm gone. And I'm going to get a million comments. I need a podcast right now. I need a stream right now. I'm not here, guys. I'm not here. Of course, if I were here, is the minute that news hit the wire, I would be live, and you guys know that. But best believe, soon as I get back, and I have the availability, I will have a stream fired up, and we will talk about it. It'll be probably old news then, but it'll be new news to me. Shit, I'll be enthused about it, whatever the decision is, and I'll have a lot to say about it by the time I get back, and I'll be refreshed. Hopefully, I'll be refreshed when I get back. So, look forward to chopping it up with you guys. I really, truly do appreciate each and every single one of you guys. And when I get back as well, we're going to hit the ground running with a number of different things. I'll have a lot for you guys when I get back because the draft will really start to hit high gear for me. I'll be churning out more of those shorts with regularity. These last couple of weeks have been hell because we're transitioning from one daycare provider to another. I was the daycare provider the last 2 weeks. And trust me, the twins, they were fantastic, but it's a hell of a chore, every day with no break. Wife still has to go to work. So I'm home with them because I've got the flexible schedule. That shit kicks ass. So I need this break. I'm going to enjoy it. So when I come back, the battery will be recharged and I'm going to hit the ground running. It's going to be a lot. I'm going to be just throwing some shit at you. I may even try to sneak in a NFC roundtable on y'all before the month is over. Get the gang back together one more time before, we get free agency and the draft and all that stuff. We'll definitely meet after all of that stuff takes place. But, maybe one more, roundtable with the fellas to just put a bow on the season now that it's over, see how everybody feels. LB was out there having to defend himself. And I thought he did too much personally. Like a lot of the people that was talking trash to him, their team wasn't in it. They weren't Chiefs fans. So he was fighting what I feel like is a losing battle at some point. Take somebody, make an example out of them, and keep it pushing. Like, don't subject yourself. Like, don't answer all of these people out here that's coming after you. Now, look, that's a part of the territory, though. We're all aware of when you do what we do, when you talk shit, you're a marked man. When we didn't make it to the playoffs, oh, my God, they were coming out of everywhere. LB was included. He would literally throw the gasoline, right? On me and then he would line the gasoline up as he's walking away. He would just keep the gasoline as he's walking away, and then he'd light the match, and then all of his little minions would come and just fan the fire, throw some extra wood and some leaves and shit, and just they lit my ass up. I'm a big boy, I can take it, but it was crazy watching him. If my team goes to the Super Bowl and we don't win, while I'll be disappointed, you still can't. And especially with the way Jalen Hurts played, it's not like they got run out of the building 38-10. His quarterback was effing outstanding. Ain't shit you can tell me. Anyway, I digress. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, King of the North. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. I think that's a double up. Says, what a win for Ron if he hires EB. A lame duck head coach hiring the Super Bowl champs OC. That's rare. Ron doesn't plan on going quietly into that good night. I mean, honestly, I think the timing more so than anything else helped Ron out. I've said this at the top of the show, but had Eric Bieniemy been available to interview like some of these other candidates were, say, 3 weeks ago after the divisional round, he'd have a job already, and it wouldn't be here in Washington. He'd be the Jets offensive coordinator, or he'd be the Chargers offensive coordinator, or he'd be the coordinator in Baltimore. He'd be somewhere else other than here. But because those teams decided not to wait, and he was going through this long process of advancing in the playoffs and ultimately making it to and winning the Super Bowl, those teams made a decision, and Washington was the only team that was willing to wait it out. Baltimore kept waiting and waiting. It was like, okay, enough of this shit. All right. They won the Super Bowl, which means he's got to go through the ticker tape parade. That's not going to be until Wednesday. At the earliest, we're not going to get our hands on him until Thursday. Enough of this shit already. Let's just hire Todd Monken. We really like this dude. We've interviewed him twice already. You know, John Harbaugh, he's put out the statement. I retweeted it. It said, you know, we interviewed 14 different candidates, 21 interviews with 14 different candidates, and we found our guy. We're not prolonging this any longer. We're done. So Ron might have gotten lucky. Luck counts too, right? That counts too. But I really, truly feel like Ron got lucky. This wasn't, Ron having some skills and him wooing Eric Bieniemy here. I think he's going to luck up here. But, hey, I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it at all. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, nah, Lou, you didn't see his stream. LB looked like a pack of Newports after that Super Bowl L. He ignored every super chat. So remember, I went on my stream to his stream, and I just watched like the first 2 minutes of it just to see I might go back and watch it. I think I'm gonna go back. I've heard enough people come to me telling me that he looked like he had got done over, pretty harshly. When I watched it, he was talking about Jalen Hurts and the two offensive lines. How do you expect someone to react in a situation like that? Like, he's not going to be jovial, It reminds me of the Dave Chappelle skit, one of his I think it was his first real stand-up, the HBO one. I can't remember. Killing Them Softly. When he has the 911 call with the KKK outside, and he's like, how am I supposed to sound when I call? I'm not gonna be all, happy. Hey, 911, how you guys doing? There's a couple of hooded white men outside of my house. Like, you're not gonna be happy. He wasn't supposed to be happy, right? He's gonna be distraught. This entire journey ends in that manner. That stings. You probably are better off getting blown out than losing in the manner that they did. It hurts even more. I personally don't want to get blown out in that game. It's going to hurt more to lose by, because then you start thinking about, damn, the Hurts fumble, the James Bradbury penalty, that one possession where we had the false start on 3rd and 1, which we would have converted, and then he fumbles. Just you start thinking about every little thing. You start dissecting all these, the 2 red zone plays where guys are wide open. You start just playing everything back in your mind. But anyway, yeah, I digress. Spence Calise, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Spence Calise, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, why would EB leave Chiefs for us for same position? So I've explained this several times. So either you haven't been watching or you haven't grasped that concept. But it's simple, Spence. They didn't want Eric Bieniemy to come back after last year. Okay, they were done with him last year. And Eric Bieniemy couldn't get a job last year. He's been on a 1-year deal in Kansas City for like each of the last 3 years. They thought he was going to get a job 3 years ago after they won the Super Bowl. Right? He didn't get a job 3 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. They went back to the Super Bowl the next year and they lost, and they still thought he was going to get a job. He didn't get a job after that. They let his contract run out after that season. He didn't get a job. They lost in the playoffs, right? Didn't make it to the Super Bowl that year. And so he didn't get a job again. And they like, at this point, Andy's like, bro, what the F, man? I can't let my guy out on the streets like this. But yo, you got to go after this year, Eric. Like, I got dudes that's waiting in line to be the next offensive coordinator because I'm trying to send dudes on their way. Like it's like a buildup, right? We in a factory, and if one person isn't doing their job on the assembly line, shit starts to get backed up. There's a clog right now in Kansas City because Andy's got all these dudes, Matt Nagy and Greg Lewis, all these dudes that he's trying to get out of Kansas City. Like, the mark of a head coach is to sprinkle guys all around the league and watch his tree grow. I can't do that if you're holding up the most prominent spot I got on my squad, which is offensive coordinator. I can't promote Greg Lewis to offensive coordinator and get him out of here if you keep holding up the spot. I can't get Matt Nagy back to OC so I can get him back as a head coach if you still here as offensive coordinator. You got to get out of here, bro. You were supposed to been gone. So it's not about Eric Bieniemy wanting to leave. It's about Andy Reid like, you got to go. You have to go. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here, Eric. And we're at the point now where Eric Bieniemy is acknowledging, in order for me to get where I ultimately want to go, which he's probably thinking it's unfair because these white coaches ain't got to do this. Zach Taylor didn't have to go and get a job. He was under Sean McVay. He won't call in shit in Los Angeles. He didn't call a single play. That was all Sean McVay. He got a job with Cincinnati. He didn't have to go and be his own coordinator to get a job. It'd be like that sometimes. I mean, it is what it is. So he realizes he's got to go out here on his own and be his own offensive coordinator, which is why he wants to be paired with a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded head coach, so that he can get all the credit for it. So you can't make any excuses and say, this wasn't Eric Bieniemy. Whether it fails or it succeeds, it's Eric Bieniemy. And that's the way he wants it. All right. So that's the last super. And that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on the backside of my little mini vacay. And we'll see who they hire. I'm assuming it's going to be Eric Bieniemy. I'm assuming they're going to make the announcement on Friday. And I'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll break that shit down on Tuesday. We'll be live again on Thursday. and we'll catch up for lost time, and then we'll turn our direction and our attention to free agency after they make a decision on offensive coordinator, which is coming very, very shortly. So stay tuned. Anyway, you guys take care. See you guys on the other side. Enjoy your weekend, the rest of this week, your weekend, and any time in between or thereafter. And I'll see you when I get back. As always, God bless. Good night.
Louie T.